Welcome to this week's edition of your Wheel and Anchor weekly newsletter. Last week, I gave you some information about what was happening on the ground in a few countries across Europe, and so I thought I would take it one step further this week and to provide some insight from people on the ground here in Asia. And so I set up Zoom interviews with some of my colleagues who I've worked with for a number of years in order so that you can hear from them directly what's happening and a little bit about what the future holds and what changes that we might expect to see in travel here in Asia. So I'm speaking with Norihiko Hayashi from Tokyo, Japan, from our own Joel Curry, who's based in Taiwan, as well as from David Nutzel in Bali, Indonesia. Following these short interviews, I'll give you some information about our upcoming events this week, which include our virtual travel trivia that's happening on Tuesday, as well as our webinar on next year's trip to Japan. So first off, here's Nori from Tokyo, Japan. So I'm now welcoming Nori from our partner TAS in Tokyo, Japan. Good morning, Nori.
Good morning, Joy.
And so, Nori, we were talking a little bit before about COVID-19, Japan affected as well. What's happening right now, Nori, in Japan?
Okay, actually, around March, Japan had many infection people, so government state emergency declare.
Yep.
And then all 47 states are banned to going out or moving around to other states.
Yes.
But actually, with the Japanese law, there is no like enforcement because government cannot ban actually. They don't have enough our Japanese law doesn't have a power to ban the people to moving around, but Japanese understand what's happening in all over the world. So we stay home by ourselves. Actually, there is no limitance by law, but we keep staying home or we starting to remote work, working from home.
Right.
Then 2 weeks before, the number of the infection is decreasing, and now almost 40 to 50 people infection per day. And then
so much lower now.
Much lower now.
Good.
The highest number around 500 or 1,000 per day, but now only 40 or 50, and also it happening not whole Japan, only few states had a new infection.
Good.
So few days before, Japanese government released the state of emergency for 43 states. Now only left 4 states: Tokyo, Kanagawa, Saitama, around the metropolitan area, and only for Hokkaido.
Let me just ask you, Nori. So right now, no travelers can come to Japan, I think. Yes.
Actually, yes, but except few a special reason, must travel with important meeting or something.
Right. But no tourists, no travelers.
No travelers.
No.
And all people once arrive Japan, they have to receive the test. And then they have to wait few hours or 1 or 2 days until they get the result.
And they need the test in order to travel.
Yes.
I see. And so what is the government saying about when Japan can open the border to tourists, to travelers?
Actually, they have no idea actually so far.
Right. So you anticipate it will be at least a few months before Japan will welcome overseas travelers,
Yeah, I think like a few months or more than half a year.
or even half a year. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, luckily we are coming to Japan not for 1 year until next May. So by then,
yeah,
we hope that everything will be normal again. What
yeah.
so obviously this had a big impact. For Japan, tourism is important, but not like in some other countries in Asia where it's a big part of the economy. But
Mm-hmm.
still, what do you think? And I know it's early days, but what do you think might change in Japan because of this pandemic in the travel business?
Okay, actually, as you say, it's a big impact for this industry, and then
Yeah.
several some of big chain of the hotel already bankrupt,
Wow.
and for our company still okay, but some small or like a middle class travel agency already bankrupt because there is no business.
Mm.
So actually, I feel more individual increasing, and then group tour will coming later.
Will be
And
coming later.
then also the place such as Tokyo or Osaka will be very crowded, as you know. So
Yes.
maybe the trend of the tourist will be changed to going to like suburb or countryside because it's more open, and then there's not
Exactly.
crowded. So I think of course this is a very serious or unusual and a very difficult situation, but
Indeed.
some place such as unknown place like very countryside or suburb area, they will have a little chance to promote them as a very safe place after COVID-19 finish.
Indeed. Yeah. But I think that's maybe an interesting opportunity for these more rural places in Japan.
Yeah.
Before, as you say, everyone traveled to Tokyo,
Mhm.
Kyoto, but so much other beauty to see in Japan. So
Mhm.
I think as we plan for the future as well, we have to think about all the other
Yeah.
wonderful places to see. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Uh, Good, Nori. Well, thank you very much. I wish you all the best. I wish you, a positive recovery.
Mhm.
We still have months to go, but I know Japan, a very, responsible country, and I'm sure
Mhm.
is doing all the best that you can to get through this situation. So,
Yeah.
thank you for your time this morning. So now I'd like to introduce you to David Nutzel. He is from Bali, Indonesia, from a company called Destination Asia. I've worked with them for many, many years across Asia, and David is on site. And tell us a little bit about what's happening in Bali. And I know Bali is really, it's all about tourism. That's by far the most important industry there. What's the situation on the ground now?
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, Bali people are depending to 70, 75, maybe even 80% of tourism. So obviously, that current situation is really devastating for not only the island, but especially the local people, the communities here on the island. We do have at the moment more or less no tourism happening, not only in Bali, but in whole Indonesia. Aside from maybe a few expats living in Bali, plus very little tourists that are stranded now since, I don't know, 2 months already because they were not able to come back to their home countries anymore. But
Yeah.
aside from this, there's basically no tourism happening. Most of the hotels are closed. Most of the restaurants are closed, starting to open. Actually, today is that several restaurants for the weekend are opening again. Um, but while we do not have an official lockdown in Bali and never had one actually, we do have, of course, a lot of social restrictions.
Mm.
But what the government has implemented already on the 24th of April, I believe, that they basically said that no domestic travel is possible anymore, aside international travel anyway, not longer already. But then on the 24th of April, they implemented also domestic travel restriction, because it's the month of Ramadan here at the moment, and a lot of local Indonesians travel for the end of Ramadan to go home to visit their home families, and to avoid this, to spread the virus further. Basically, the government has stopped any kind of domestic flights until the 31st of May. Inter-island ferries are stopped until the 8th of June, and railways and trains are stopped until, I believe, on the 15th of June.
Right.
So as long as we have these in place, there's basically nothing happening.
Nothing happening. And what do you think the future holds? I mean, again, there's a lot of question marks, I'm sure not just in Indonesia, but the rest of the world. Have they given any sense of when they anticipate tourists will return to Bali?
So at the moment, everything looks like that we start a very slow return of at least transportation options, effective from beginning and mid of June. While we still have at the moment, the visa policy has been waived. So you, as an international traveler, you would at the moment more or less not be able to visit Indonesia.
Right.
We expect this to change by the end of June, beginning of July. But even then, so if we, let's assume airlines start flying again, borders will reopen, it will of course take a while until really people also start traveling again. So I guess, talking from an international traveler point, the first tourism or the first tourist that we will see to return to Indonesia will be like the regional markets, everything which is close to Indonesia, which has short flight distances, like Singapore, Hong Kong, China, obviously, Malaysia, Australia, these countries. The Americans and the Europeans, this will most likely take a little longer.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you, and just as a final point, do you anticipate anything will change in terms of the nature of travel specifically in Bali? I mean, this is obviously a major hit to the local economy, the way people live and work. And I realize it's a tough question because there's lots of changes that will undoubtedly happen, but is there anything that you're aware of that will be a long-lasting effect or a change in Bali?
I guess, we will see quite dramatic or quite dramatic changes probably, because people will be having a much stronger on health and safety when they return to travel. And we have already, actually before that whole thing really blew up, we have at Destination Asia Indonesia, we have formed internally a so-called COVID-19 committee, where we are sitting with 6 people, and I'm a member of this committee also. And we are working at the moment on ideas and mainly ideas so far on what we want and need to change and implement once tourism returns. And that obviously will have a very strong focus again on safety and health of guests, so that we can ensure travelers that it's safe to travel not only to Indonesia, but also to travel with Destination Asia. And of course, we're thinking here in that moment to provide facial masks, to provide hand sanitizers, to keep social distance, but also to focus more on healthy meals, trying to avoid buffet meals and do more like a la carte meals. So these are all things which we are discussing at the moment, and we will for sure have to change our operations and the way we serve guests. We do expect that for us, international long-haul markets to return probably slowly starting from October. So we still have a bit time to see how it's best to implement, but it will definitely change the way we operate. We have to, otherwise it
for sure. I think we have to change as an industry on how we deal with our guests. David, thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate it immensely. I wish you all the best in Bali.
Thank you, Gordon.
Yeah, I hope things improve, and we look forward to seeing you with a bunch of Wheel and Anchor members next September of 2021. By then, things will be as back to normal as we can expect.
We assume so.
Yeah, great.
Thanks a lot, Gordon.
Yeah, you're welcome, David. So, and last but not least, our very own Joel Curry, who is a resident in Taipei, Taiwan. Joel, we've been talking obviously a lot about COVID-19 and the impact that it's having on all of the countries, all the destinations that we offer, as well as the world at large. What's happening in Taiwan? We hear good news coming out of Taiwan compared to many other places.
Yeah, so Taiwan has pretty much been sort of the darling of the news media, if you will, because they've handled it very, very well here. There's only been 440 cases, 441 actually. There was one new one today, someone who came back from Mexico a couple of days ago. But it's been 40 days, around 40 days with no local cases, and this was the first imported case in 2 weeks, kind of thing. There's only something like 30 active cases left in the country. So Taiwan, from a handling the virus situation, has really deserves all the credit that they've been getting to this point.
Absolutely, but no travelers can currently come to Taiwan, like most places in the world. What is the outlook there? What's your sense of it anyway, in terms of when can I, as a foreign tourist, come to Taiwan? Do you think?
Yeah, so it is that they have it said that if you don't have a visa or a permanent residency card, you can't come in the country right now. Even if you do, you are subject to 14-day quarantine still. That is still the case. But they are slowly talking about, now they're talking about allowing business travelers in, and they'll have only a 5-day quarantine if they're on a short-term stay kind of thing. So they're definitely keen to bring tourists back. What they projected at the moment is October to sort of fully allow that to happen. And I would assume that means you won't have to do the 14-day quarantine. Could be 5, but the 14-day one I would think would not be there because that's effectively a tourism ban. So they're still waiting until October. They're going to let the summer come through. I suspect that is largely because, for them it's not about the situation here. It's about the situation somewhere else and it coming in.
Absolutely.
And they wanted.
Taiwan, compared to some of the other countries that we're talking about, tourism is important to many countries, but it's not as important in Taiwan as it is to Thailand, for example.
Yeah, I guess in the sense, like Taiwan has always been sort of off the beaten track of the travelers in Southeast Asia. Undeservedly, it's really amazing, but they don't get a ton. Most of the tourism does come from mainland China, also right. Japan. So at least certainly from Western tourists, not as many.
Right. And from what you can see now, and obviously there's still a long way to go until we're through this in Taiwan as well. But Taiwan being a leader in the industry, what changes do you anticipate already as it relates to travelers coming into the country? What changes do you anticipate will occur as a result of the pandemic?
Yeah, well, so the Taiwanese in general are very cautious, and that is partly why they've been so successful with handling this virus. They learned a lot from SARS, so I would expect them to maintain sort of you have to wear your mask on the subways when you ride the subway. That is mandatory here now. So I would imagine that rule would stay, as much because of how it helps contain your own illness, but also just the way that it sort of tells everybody that we're all in this together. And I think that they may want to have tourists also participate in that kind of a scheme. They've also developed a fairly rapid testing kit here, like a finger prick kind of 15-minute thing. I wouldn't be surprised if coming in the airport, everybody had to do that. I imagine they will have some kind of way of testing for antibodies or whatever. But yeah, in general, otherwise, they are fairly confident about their testing and tracking method. And I guess that would be the other thing. You'd probably have to register your phone with them, and you'd have to be aware that, if you end up in an area or someone you're with ends up contracting the virus or something, that you will be contacted and expected to take action that they tell you to do on quarantining.
Right. Yeah. I think that's an interesting one. And we talked earlier about this contact tracing, and I know it's a big topic in the follow up to the virus, but they've been pioneers of it in Taiwan and in other places in Asia. And I fully expect, and as much as it seems to infringe or potentially infringes on people's privacy, at least they think it does. It does seem like it would be a logical solution to helping contain this and allowing us to travel around again. So great. Well, thank you for that insight. We're going to be traveling to Taiwan as an extension to our Bali and Indonesia program in September of 2021. So a long ways off yet. I'm sure by then things will be back to normal. And for those of you that decide to do that, you'll undoubtedly meet Joel, who is our marketing coordinator and co-founder of Wheel and Anchor. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your time this afternoon, Joel.
No problem. And yes, come to Taiwan. It's really, really spectacular. It is probably not what you think it is. And it's really quite special. So come along on that trip.
So as you heard, there are some big challenges ahead here for the travel industry and for economies at large. And I think that the comments that you just heard are reflected amongst other people I've spoken to in countries, not only here in Asia, but around the world. Nevertheless, I think that there is an underlying optimism that this will pass at some point, and all of us as passionate travelers will be able to get back to travel, hopefully in the very latter part of this year, or certainly by 2021. So once again, just to reiterate, this coming Tuesday is our virtual travel trivia round 2. So if you weren't able to join us a couple of weeks ago, we had a great attendance, and we had a winner of our $100 travel voucher towards any of our Wheel and Anchor trips. So if you want to participate, it's happening on Tuesday. This coming Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time as usual. So we'd love to have you join us. You'll find the information in the link below. And following that on Thursday, we'll be introducing Japan. And this is again the program that we could not participate on this year for obvious reasons. We'll be going back again next May, and look forward to telling you all about that. So in the meantime, hope you start to enjoy the improving weather across various parts of Canada, and I look forward to catching up with you again next week.